Smoke crawled through the hallway like a living thing. Steel plates groaned from the last assault. Commander Lee Vance hurried down the corridor, her boots echoing between the alarms. The bulkhead lights blinked red and white, painting her face in hard flashes. The taste of engine coolant hung in the air. The war had ended in another tired victory. The Eighth Belt was quiet now, stripped of life and minerals, another win for the corporate fleets. The wounded crowded the med bays, the dead wrapped in steel-lined fabric, sealed and tagged for disposal. Nobody sang. No one celebrated. Lee walked past the mess, past the chatter of broken laughter that sounded more like surrender. In the main deck, her second officer, Ash Moran, stood waiting. He looked young, tired, skin pale under the harsh overhead light. "Another liberation," he said with a dry voice. "We freed rocks again." Lee didn't answer. She stopped at the operations screen and waited for the rest of the crew. They gathered around her, faces lined with exhaustion. Admiral Creed appeared on the projection above them, tall, calm, eyes cold behind the static. "Soldiers," Creed said, "the Belt campaign is complete. Prepare for redeployment. The Council has authorized a new strike near the outer colonies." "No delay." His face flickered once before the link cut. The crew said nothing. Orders were orders. Lee dismissed them and turned to Ash. He lingered like he wanted to speak but didn't. She nodded. "Out with it." He looked around before stepping closer. "You ever wonder if they lied to us? About Earth?" Her breath caught. "That rumor again?" "It's not a rumor this time." He slipped a small data tablet from inside his jacket. "I found this buried in the transmission logs. It's sealed under Level 9 protocol." Lee frowned. "That's Fleet Command access. You'll get arrested if they find out." "I know," Ash said, voice low. "But look." He activated the tablet. Images flickered across the screen: blue oceans, dense forests, towering cities surrounded by clouds. It looked real, not simulated. At the corner of each file was one word: origin. Lee stared. For a long moment she said nothing. "It can't be." Ash nodded. "I think it's real. They said Earth was gone, vaporized before the Exodus. But this date is recent. Someone updated it 2 cycles ago." The sound of distant engines filled the deck. Lee felt her chest tighten. "You showed this to anyone else?" "No," he said. "Just you? I didn't want to die before I told someone who might listen." She slipped the tablet into her pocket, her hands shaking. "We'll talk later." That night, alarms screamed through the ship again. The explosion hit from below Deck 6, the crew quarters. Lee woke on the floor, smoke pouring through the doorframe. She ran barefoot through the heat, shouting Ash's name, fighting the current of bodies and flames. When she reached his cabin, the metal walls were twisted, black and silent. The roof had caved in. There was nothing left but a crater of melted steel. Security teams rushed in to contain the fire. Someone shouted about an internal breach. Spies, sabotage, an accident. No one knew. Lee crouched and saw something half burned into the Dakash's identification tag fused to a small chip. She picked it up. The edges were still hot. In faint white letters she could read one line: "Origin access confirmed." Lee closed her fist around it. Everything around her roared, but her pulse was steady. The alarm tone faded beneath the constant hum of the ship's engines, like something living and ready. At that moment, the main control display behind her lit up bright red. Static filled the bridge speakers. Then the voice of Fleet Command came through. "Commander Vance, access revoked. Stand down and await arrest." Lee looked at the burned chip in her hand, then at the growing fire through the corridor window. The engine lights flickered once, and in the glare she smiled, just for a second. The war wasn't what she thought. Now someone knew she had found out. The isolation order hit within an hour. Commander Lee Vance's credentials were erased from every terminal on Station Kestrel. Her access codes failed, her ship refueling rights revoked, even her personal quarters sealed by security drones. The message was short and cold. Asterisk under observation for cognitive instability. Asterisk. The corridors that once saluted her now turned away. Soldiers stopped speaking when she passed. It was how the system erased you while you were still alive. She sat alone inside an unpowered control room. Lights dimmed to red emergency glow. The air recycler clicked like a metronome. In her hand, the burnt chip felt heavier than it looked. She turned it again and again between her fingers until static whispers came from the wall. "Come, Lee," a voice said.
You awake?
The voice was low, cautious. It was Captain Ridge Halden, an old fleet friend she hadn't heard from in years. She pressed the transmitter. "Ridge, how did you find this line? I saw your name wiped from the registry. You want to tell me what you did?" "I showed nothing. Someone blew up my crew deck." A pause. Then listen carefully. "They're cleaning records. You poke something they buried. Whatever you found, it's not just data, it's the core of how the fleets built their history." He cut the connection before she could answer. The screen went dead. She didn't wait. She moved fast through the silent station, keeping 2 maintenance corridors. Security drones floated above intersections, scanning for movement. When they passed, she ran. The hum of her pulse matched the hum of engines in the walls. Her ship waited in Dock 6, locked down under fleet inspection. The outer hull reflected the cold light of the hangar. She swiped her ID again, denied. Again, denied. A young engineer stood nearby, stripping wires from a shuttle panel. He looked up startled. "Commander Vance?" She met his eyes. "You were on the Eastern Convoy last year. You owe me a favor?" He hesitated. "Yes, ma'am. I need access to that cruiser." He knew what that meant. He opened the panel without speaking and crossed to cables. The deck alarm shut down for 5 seconds, long enough for her to slip through the airlock and seal it behind her. Inside, the ship was cold and steady. Her boots echoed as she walked through the quiet halls toward the bridge. "Computer," she said. "Override lock sequence." The ship answered in a neutral tone. "Command authority revoked." She gritted her teeth. "Backup command. Vance, Delta 9. Accepted." Lights came alive across the deck. Engines hummed faint, waiting for command. For a moment, she felt the old control again, the sense of movement, purpose, power. She opened the crew channel. "All hands loyal to Commander Vance. Report to Deck 6. Immediate departure authorization under emergency code." Half a dozen voices answered. Loyal voices. Soldiers who had fought beside her and still trusted her name. They appeared on deck, breathless, armed, no questions asked. "Where to?" Engineer Holt asked. "Anywhere Fleet Command can't see us," she said. They powered the thrusters. The station window turned bright with fire as they launched from dock. Sirens blared across the traffic. An authorized vessel departing. "Intercept in progress." "Cut communications," Lee ordered. The ship burst into open space. Guns tracked them from the station's defense ring, but didn't fire. Fleet Command wanted them captured, not destroyed. Ridge's signal came again through a hidden frequency. "Head into the glass veil," he said. "The radiation cloud near Outer 9. They can't follow you there." "Copy." As the ship entered warp, streaks of red light bent around them. Lee leaned on the console, breathing hard. The chip from Ash lay beside her. The word Origin burned into its metal edge. The comm didn't last. The sensor officer shouted. "Incoming spike. Someone's attached to the hull. Boarding signatures multiple." Lee's face turned white. "Who found us?" Before anyone could answer, the comm system came alive. A male voice rang from the speakers, steady and cruel. "Commander Vance, this is Admiral Creed. Power down your engines and surrender the chip." Lee froze, every muscle locked. He had come for her himself. The ship fell through silence. No engines, no alarms. Just the whisper of air thinning around the hull as gravity caught them. Outside the shattered glass, a half-lit Earth spun upward like a silent wave. Lee Vance strapped herself into the pilot chair and pulled manual control levers that no longer worked. Holt tried to restart the generator, sparks jumping from broken cables. The console lights stayed dead. "We're going down," Holt said, voice tight but steady. "I know," she answered. They hit the upper atmosphere. The hull flared orange. Flames streaked past the windows. The craft groaned under pressure. The crew braced as gravity crushed them into their seats. Fire tore across the wings, melting armor, but the vessel held. It didn't explode. It simply fell, slower and slower, guided by something unseen. Lee felt the controls move under her hands without input. "It's overriding us," Holt said. "Something's steering." She said nothing, eyes locked on the blue curve filling the glass. Ocean, continent, cloud. The autopilot switched itself on, though its circuits were dead. It guided the ship toward a stretch of mountains surrounded by old metal fields and dark towers. They hit ground hard but didn't break. Dust filled the cabin. Steam hissed from the vents. The ship lay half buried in dirt beside a ridge of tall grass that swayed under the wind. Lee unbuckled, opened the side hatch, and stepped outside. Her boots sank into soil. Real soil. The air was warm, heavy, full of strange scent salt, dust, life. She took off her helmet and breathed once, slow and deep. Ah! It cut her throat but filled her chest with something fierce and clear. Holt stumbled out behind her, coughing, his eyes widened. We're alive. They stood together, staring across plains of broken satellite shells and rusted towers half swallowed by moss. In the distance, a line of gray buildings stretched toward the horizon, lights flickering inside. It looked like a city asleep under dust. The cum unit on Holt's wrist crackled weakly. He lifted it, but no signal came. It's only a rhythm of static, like words trying to shape themselves. It repeated the voice they'd heard before, now clearer and colder. Welcome home. Identification confirmed. Stand by. Lee turned to Holt. It's talking to us. Who's talking? Earth, she said. Or what's left of what we've built into it. They heard low thunder in the distance. Not weather engines. The horizon shimmered with movement. Machines rose from the old towers, shaped like carriers but smaller, built for terrain, moving fast. They were armored and human-made, no fleet markings, no insignia, silent as predators. Defense units, Holt said, still active after centuries. Lee picked up her rifle. Its battery flickered, but charged. They're scanning us. We stay still. We're targets. We move. Maybe they listen. You really think they're friendly? No, she said. But they're ours. They started down the slope toward the ancient city. The ground shook. The old towers shifted, folding open as if waking. The machines moved closer, thin lines of red searchlights sweeping across the zone. When one beam hit Lee, the air around her vibrated like pressure underwater. A metallic voice boomed through the valley. Human origin detected. State command. Lee raised the chip high. Commander Lee Vance, Fleet Registry 17A. Returning from outer colonies. Silence. The lights went white, freezing every shadow. Then the voice returned. Command accepted. The machine stopped moving. Doors opened, lowering ramps into the dirt. Beyond those ramps, rows of metal corridors lit up in sequence, leading deep underground. Holt stared. Once it's inside, Lee tightened her grip on the rifle. Then we see what's left. They walked forward, swallowed by the bright tunnels. The air became colder and cleaner as if filtered by unseen systems. Symbols flashed on the wall's old fleet codes, names of wars erased from memory. Deep below, a chamber opened before them. In its center stood a single operating chair surrounded by screens showing the sky above. One window displayed the wrecked ship still falling through orbit, both hers and Creed's. A figure lay in that chair, flesh and machine fused, breathing slow. Lee moved closer. The eyes of the sleeper opened. They were human. Commander Vance, the figure said quietly. You finally came back. Lee froze. Her voice barely rose to a whisper. Who are you? The answer came calm and steady. I am what you left behind. The sound of the impact shook the ship like thunder. Metal screamed. Lights cut out. Sparks burst across the bridge ceiling. Crew members hit the floor as alarms wailed through the narrow halls. On the main screen, red icons spread across the whole map. Boarding claws had latched deep into the armor. Admiral Creed's voice came again, calm through the chaos. No need to lose anyone, Commander. Give me the chip, and I'll make sure your people are treated kindly. Lee Vance stood like a statue in the fading light. Her jaw tightened. Seal all interior hatches, she ordered. Arm sections 4 through 8. Holt moved fast on the controls. They'll breach in under a minute. Then make them pay for it. The corridor cameras showed shadows cutting through the smoke. The invaders wore fleet armor black and unmarked. Creed's personal strike team. They killed fast and clean, shooting only once per target. They're not taking this ship, Lee said. She opened the armory panel and tossed rifles down the line. The crew checked ammo without a word. No speeches. No farewells. Just the quiet rhythm of people who had already made their choice. The first blast tore the doorway open. White light poured through the breach. Soldiers stormed inside, firing short bursts. The narrow metal passage turned into a furnace of noise. Lee dropped behind a console and fired. Sparks lit the air. A shadow fell near her feet, armor smoking. Holt ducked, reloaded, shouted, rear flank. They fought step by step back toward engineering, leaving smoke and bodies behind. Alarms pulsed above them like a heartbeat. The floor tilted hard to one side as another boarding claw broke the outer hull. "Pressure loss on deck 4, someone yelled. "Seal it," Lee answered, sweat running down her cheek. She could feel the vibration of enemy boots on the deck plates. Creed was pushing his entire team inside. He wanted the chip more than her death, and that made him dangerous. When the last inner hatch locked, she turned to Holt. "Fire the cargo ports manually." He blinked. "What?" "Open them now." He hesitated only a second before obeying. The outer doors cracked open and a roar of air tore through the ship. The boarding tubes snapped like whips. A flash of light filled the control deck as 2 enemy craft were ripped apart, dragged into the vacuum. Oxygen warnings blared. The noise faded into ringing silence. Half the crew lay on the floor, gasping. But the enemy gunfire was gone. The view outside showed a storm of glowing gas. The glass veil, electric dust storms, and unstable radiation fields. The color here was deep red, shifting, restless. They were invisible to any fleet scanners now. Lee leaned over the main console, hands shaking. "Engines stable?" "Barely," Holt said. "So we're running blind." "Good. Keep running." They floated inside the storm. Lights dim, systems low. The fire alarms finally went quiet. No signal left the ship. It was a graveyard of silence. Lee pulled the burned chip from her jacket and plugged it into the main navigation system. A set of coordinates appeared. The crew leaned close to see. The numbers led straight into a blank area beyond the charted sectors. Old, forgotten, deleted.
What is that?"
Holt asked. "Sector 0, she said. The one they said collapsed from antimatter fallout. She ran the scan twice. The readings were impossible gravity pull similar to an active planet. Temperature and pressure resembled a habitable world. "It's alive," she whispered. The crew looked at her, waiting for an order that didn't come. Before she could speak, the radar showed movement. Holt frowned. "Ships behind us. I thought we lost them." The display flickered. Black dots formed a pattern. 12 ships, silent. No signal, no code. Fleet design, but unregistered. Lee felt her chest tighten. "Creed's Ghost Fleet," she said. The sensor lights flashed one last time, then all power died. Outside the window, the shapes moved in formation, drifting through the red cloud, closing in on them like shadows with purpose. "Commander," Holt whispered, "they're not firing." Lee stared at the black wall of ships ahead. A channel opened across the dead static. Admiral Creed's voice filled the bridge again. "You're leading us home, Commander." "That's exactly what I wanted." Leah's breath caught as a white glow flashed on the horizon ahead, a massive sphere of blue light taking form through the storm, and it looked like a world. The blue light grew stronger until it filled every window of the bridge. The red fog of the glass veil thinned, torn apart by gravity and air pressure. What stood before them wasn't a storm, but a living planet. White clouds rolled over dark water. Sunlight hit the curve of green land. Earth. No one spoke for several seconds. It felt impossible to breathe. The readings showed normal temperature, active biosphere, clean rotation, alive, not destroyed, not myth. Lee gripped the railing. "It's real." Holt stared at the screen. "How can it still be here?" On the radar, the black ship's Creed's Ghost Fleet had stopped firing. They stayed in formation behind them, powered down but steady. Then the intercom snapped alive. Creed's voice returned, smoother now. "Magnificent, isn't it, Commander? The original home." "I told them you would bring us back." Lee's throat went dry. "You were tracking the coordinates. I didn't need to. You were always the last loyal one, whether you knew it or not. Why lie to everyone? Why hide this?" Creed laughed once, low and tired. "Because the planet turned on us. The systems it holds defend it from anything built off-world. The defense network wiped out the old fleets that tried to settle again. so they buried it. They built their power on everything beyond it. But now, we have better weapons, better minds. You've brought me the key. Lee looked at the burned chip. You want to destroy it? I want to free it. His voice softened on the word, then sharpened again. Transmit the chip data to my ship. You can rule half the sectors under me. She cut the channel. The bridge went silent again. The surface of Earth rotated slowly beneath them, a blue eye that never blinked. Holt turned from his screen. He's charging plasma arrays. Lee nodded. He'll fire to provoke the system defenses. Then he'll claim whatever survives. Orders? She looked around the bridge. The small crew waited, burnt and tired but ready. We stop him. This isn't another fleet battle. This is everything. They powered up engines, shields, and missiles. The Varix was outnumbered 20-1. Radiation shimmered as the ghost fleet spread out. Energy signatures lit across the black ships like veins glowing under skin. Creed fired first. The sky burned white. The blast ripped through empty space where they had been seconds before. Holt swung the ship hard left and dropped below orbital range. The counterfire hit back in bursts. Explosions flashed like lightning. One of the Varix's engines went down. The deck tilted, throwing bodies against walls. Panels burst from heat. A pilot screamed through static before his console exploded. Reactor pressure at critical, Holt yelled. Keep it alive, Lee shouted back. She rerouted power, hands flying. The hull rattled again. Outside, one of Creed's cruisers cracked apart and vanished in a trail of fire. Lee watched the blue planet spinning below. Its satellites rusted, ancient, still armed, began to move. Automatic defense turrets along the orbit woke as if sensing war above them.
Oh.
Red lights blinked across hundreds of dark shells rising from centuries of sleep. Commander Holt said, They're locking onto every ship. Creed's voice came again, desperate now. Vance, stop transmission control. You'll trigger it. It's already awake, she said. Bolts of directed energy cut across the void, slicing through the ghost fleet like a storm of precision light. One by one, Creed's ships fell silent, burning without sound. The Vorax took another hit. Power flickered. Smoke filled the bridge. Lee's arm bled from a deep cut. Holt fought to keep the craft above re-entry line. Orbit's collapsing, he said. She stood straight, eyes locked on the world below. Transmit everything, every file, every signal. Send the truth to every fleet network. He did it without asking why. The signal burst through white static, racing back through the cloud fields into far space. A final pulse tore through all channels. Every ship, every reactor, every weapon, shut down at once. The noise vanished. The Virex drifted, powerless, sliding toward the bright curve of the planet. Holt turned, voice shaking. What was that? Lee looked through the cracked window. The black ships of Creed's fleet floated dead behind them. Static filled the speakers. Then a new signal came, cold, mechanical, human in rhythm. Welcome home. The lights on the bridge flickered once and died.